Hey everybody, my name is James. I am a video production specialist here at Videoguys, and we're back. It's Tuesday, it's 3 p.m., and we are back to our regularly scheduled Videoguys live show. I want to start off by saying happy holidays, happy new year. Hope you had a good break. We sure did here. So we wanted to kick off the year by asking yet again, is it time to produce my events in 4K? And the answer is yes, maybe, but definitely yes, actually. So let's get into it. If you don't know, in the simplest terms, 4K is just the number of pixels that the camera is capturing or is being displayed on a monitor of some sort. So 4K is 3,840 by 2,160 pixels, which compared to 1080, which is 1920 by 1080, it's 4 times the number of pixels, which means that you are going to get a much sharper and detailed image. 4K doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to get these greater color depths and vibrancy, but a lot of the time, if you're getting a camera that is 4K, a lot of the time it will have higher color depth. It will also have higher dynamic range and things like that. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Now, 4K is still an ever-growing market, but primarily where we see it expanding the most quickly right now is sporting events, concerts, and high-end corporate presentations. Sporting is probably the most obvious in terms that, you want to be able to follow the play. Was that person really out when he slid across first base? Did they get over the line of scrimmage? You want to be able to zoom into that picture and make sure that you can see everything clear as day. Concerts, super popular in small venues all the way up to large venues. Sometimes in a smaller venue, you don't have control of the lighting. So maybe you take advantage of a 4K camera just being that much better in a low light situation. But then also if you are working with big name stars, they're going to want you to be able to record and stream in 4K. And then of course, high-end corporate presentations. The way that I like to think about it is when you're doing a presentation, you want to look your best. So that way you then want to present your best. So if you put a couple training presenters in front of a camera and a couple lights, they are going to treat it more professional, and they're going to take it more seriously because you are investing in them looking good, and then they will invest in themselves sounding good. All right. So the good thing is 4K technology is expanding more and more every day. PTZ cameras, camcorders, production systems, encoders, decoders, cellular bonding. Let's break it down a little bit. So of course, 4K PTZ cameras are on the uptrend. Almost every single one of our manufacturers, if not every single one of our manufacturers, is now making at least one 4K camera. And in fact, most of them are making multiple 4K cameras. BirdDog just recently came back with BirdDog 2.0 with their X series of PTZ cameras, which the X1 Ultra, the X4, and the X5 are all 4K compatible PTZ cameras. You got Canon, their entire PTZ line is 4K compatible from the CRN100 to the CRN700. JVC has their KYPZ 400 and 500 series that are 4K. Marshall and Panasonic also have 4K cameras. PTZOptics has their Move 4K, and Vizrt recently announced the PTZ UHD Plus, which is their 4K PTZ camera. And what's not to love about being able to shoot in 4K with a PTZ camera? And we'll get into some of those advantages in a little bit. Just know that every manufacturer is making 4K PTZ cameras, and the cost of 4K PTZ cameras is coming down as the demand goes up. But you can also get things like software and hardware. All of these switching platforms out there on the market right now A lot of them are 4K compatible. You have Wirecast, you have TriCaster Mini S, which is new, but it's also 4K compatible, 4K 60. You have vMix, you have OBS. All of these switching softwares are 4K compatible, and you should absolutely be taking advantage of that. Now, in terms of hardware, you do have your turnkey production system, so they're going to be a lot of the same as the software, but it's hardware built to match that 4K. TriCaster has 4K options starting as low as the TriCaster Mini S, all the way up to their flagship, their brand new flagship TriCaster Vision, which can support 36 cameras at 4K 60p. JVC has their KM IP12 and IP12 Pro, which can support up to 12 4K cameras. The Epiphan family of products has the Epiphan Pro Mini with the 4K add-on, as well as the Epiphan Pro 2. And then YOLOBox Ultra is a 4K 30p turnkey production system, but also the brand new YOLOBox Extreme that is going to be coming out soon is also 4K 30p compatible. The other thing is, if you have, maybe some breakout rooms that you want to display your video in, or you want to bring in some legacy cameras, you can also now get, well, not now, you've been able to for a while, but more easily now get converters, encoders and decoders that are 4K compatible, including but not limited to the KiloView N50 and 60, the Vizrt T-Solo Connect Solos, and even the BirdDog converters. Some of them are 4K as well. But then you also have your cellular bonding encoders for maybe you're in a place where you don't have access to internet and you still want to be able to send your stream out, whether it's maybe it's a house of worship or you're at a sporting event and there's no internet around. You still want to be able to take that feed and send it via cellular data. LiveView Solo Pro and the KiloView P3 are encoders with cellular data that allow you to stream in 4K. NDI technology and 4K has also been growing and making things easier and easier. And we'll get into NDI 6 in the next slide here, but I just wanted to quickly go over NDI HX3, allowing you to do super low latency, high quality, and high efficient video transmission over your local network. If we look at this chart down here, you can see that at 4K 60p, if you're using H.265 compression, you're only using 84 megabits per second per camera, or per video feed, I should say, that is on your network. If we went back just a couple years ago and you wanted to use full bandwidth 4K 60p on your local network, it would be anywhere from 200 to 300 megabits per second per camera. So if you're on a standard 1 gig network a couple years ago, that would have limited you in the number of cameras that you could have and the overhead. But that is no longer really an issue. Even on a standard 1 gig network, you can easily have 5 or 6 cameras or 5 or 6 video sources on your network and not have to worry about getting close to your bandwidth maximum. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit too. Just because you have 4K cameras does not necessarily mean that you need to stream in 4K, but you can also record in 4K. And we'll get into this a little bit more as well. You get a lot of benefits of recording in 4K for post-production work. And then, of course, integration with existing workflows. So let's say, for example, you had maybe 2 camcorders that you were using. They're 4K, they're nice cameras, and now you're switching over to an NDI workflow and you want to get a couple more cameras. Well, you don't have to go get 5 new PTZ cameras for a 5-camera workflow. You could get 3 new 4K PTZ cameras, keep your existing camcorders, and then get some kind of encoder to convert those camcorder signals into NDI signals from either HDMI or SDI to NDI to be able to use on your network. So NDI technology is making it easier and easier for you to go to a 4K workflow and giving you reasons to do that. And of course, I want to talk about NDI 6 and it expanding the 4K capabilities. We already talked about NDI HX3, and although HDR support and 10-bit color dip are not necessarily native to every single 4K camera. A lot of 4K cameras will include wider dynamic range or more color bit depth. So NDI team is saying, hey, you're getting these cameras that are available that have these features on them. Let's incorporate them into our streams. Now, if you don't know what HDR is, it's high dynamic range. And basically that makes it so your highlights don't peak as easily and your lowlights don't get crushed as easily. And the fade between your highlights and your lowlights is going to be less jagged, it's going to be less blocky, and it's just going to look more natural to what you and your human eye can see. A perfect example of this is Canon's PTZ cameras are all wide dynamic range supported. So you can take full advantage of that now. They're already 4K, and now you can also take advantage of the HDR support. But you can take it a step further and take advantage of the 10-bit color depth as well. And this is going to be very similar to your lowlights and your highlights with HDR, except it's going to be your color transitions and your color accuracy. Another way to think about the 10-bit color and how you can actually see a difference in that is if we're looking at this hot air balloon here and we have a transition from orange to yellow, it's going to be a much smoother transition, especially if there was supposed to be a gradient. And in this picture, it is actually kind of jagged, but that's the design of the hot air balloon there. But if you wanted to have a gradient across the screen from orange to yellow, it would be much smoother the more color depth that you have available. And so, like I said, again, these cameras are coming out with these features, and 4K is just another feature, and NDI is making it say, hey, 4K, HDR, 10-bit color depth. Let's make it happen. I wanted to quickly go over some best practices when you are using 4K. We're going to talk about network requirements. We talked about that a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. Talking about advantages of using a 4K workflow, and I don't just mean HDR and 10-bit color. We're going to talk about other reasons that you may want to switch over to a 4K workflow, and then also talking about future-proofing your content and your workflow. So the first thing I want to talk about is network requirements. Typically, when you are streaming in 4K, you want to make sure that you have at least 25 megabits per second per stream of upload. Now, I want to emphasize that when you're looking at your bandwidth in your studio or wherever you're streaming from, the key here is your upload speed. You are not downloading and watching videos from Netflix or Paramount or anything like that. You are sending your video out. So you want to make sure that you have at least 25 megabits per stream that you're sending out. And meaning if you're using a TriCaster or something like that, that can send multiple streams out. If you're going to send a stream to YouTube and Facebook, for example, you want to have 50 megabits then, just to have overhead, because keep in mind, a lot of other people might be on your network as well. You want to make sure that you have plenty of overhead. Another way that you can kind of mitigate that is you can use something like Restream.io. You can send a single feed from your production system to Restream, and then Restream will redistribute, and that won't affect your bandwidth. The next thing that I want to talk about is wireless NDI features. And while that is acceptable, it is becoming more and more common, especially with the BirdDog cameras. We are still going to recommend, if you have the ability to do so, to use a wired connection. Just a single Ethernet cable allows you to get rock solid, reliable connection and the lowest latency possible. And the last thing for talking about network requirements is you want to make sure that your network is not, congested with a whole bunch of other stuff. So again, I'm going to give you a quick example. If you have a TriCaster, on the back of most, if not all, of the TriCasters, there's actually 2 NIC ports. And one of those would be for your local NDI network, and the other NIC port would be for your house network and your internet access. That way you keep all of your NDI devices together and not being able to be interfered with from other people that might be in the building. And then it's also easier to manage your NDI devices. Now, What do we recommend when you're looking to build a studio and you're looking to build your network? We are always going to recommend the Netgear M4250 line of AV switches. And first and foremost, the reasons are because they're engineered for AV over IP. As we go down the rest of this list, you will see what I'm talking about. Netgear is committed to Pro AV. Not only are they making switches that work with, Dante, AVH, and NDI and Dante audio, but they're also now starting to make switches that are compatible with SMPTE and SMPTE certified, which is broadcast level equipment. And again, as we're starting to move to 4K, you're going to want those more broadcast standards, and Netgear is committed to that. They're also committed to the trends. Like I said, BirdDog is making wireless PTZ cameras, and Netgear is now making wireless access points to be able to bring your wireless NDI sources into your switch. They are extremely easy to configure with the web GUI. Their Engage web GUI, and it has presets for things like NDI HX3 and NDI 6. And then, of course, last but not least, they are recommended by all of our manufacturers: PTZOptics, BirdDog, Vizrt, JVC, Panasonic. All of our manufacturers recommend using Netgear's M4250 or M4350 line of switches if you are going to be doing AV over IP. Now let's talk about some of the advantages of just strictly using a 4K camera, not including HDR or higher bit depth for color. Well, first and foremost, you're streaming and recording in 4K. You're going to have a sharper image, especially if you have proper lighting. If you have proper lighting, you can take full advantage of that 4K sensor on your camera and get the best picture possible. But at the other end of the spectrum, you also will get a little bit better in low light situations, because there's more pixels for the camera to see things that are around in that low light. And then, all of this AI and noise reduction can use those additional pixels to get the best possible picture, even in low light situations. One of my favorite things to do with 4K cameras is taking a 4K image and then digitally zooming into it and exporting or streaming in 1080, and that way you get a lossless digital zoom. I'll give you two examples of why you might want to do that. Let's say right now we're recording in 4K. All of our cameras are 4K compatible. We're only streaming in 1080, but we're recording in 4K. We take that feed afterwards, and then we can edit highlight reels. We can do, if something was overexposed or underexposed, we have the ability to edit those in post-production. And then being able to digitally zoom into it, The other thing is there are certain 4K PTZ cameras like the Canon CRN700 that actually allows you to do a region of interest in that 4K image plus the full frame 4K image, and output both of those through two separate outputs, which just gives you more range to do what you want to be able to do with it. And then I kind of teased a little bit already, but post-production work, you can digitally zoom in to your post-production work. You can record everything onto something like a KiloView Cube R1, have all of your NDI sources record there, and then you can re-edit and rehash everything in post-production. Last thing that I want to talk about is it's basically going to be future-proofing you. I haven't really talked about it yet, but I'll talk about it now. No one except for YouTube is really allowing consumers and prosumers to stream in 4K at the moment. Facebook is 1080, Twitch is 1080, LinkedIn's actually only 720, but you want to be able to future-proof yourself, especially with the cost of these cameras coming down. You can get a 4K camera now for $1,500, and then 6 months from now, 8 months from now, when 4K is available on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on whatever platform you want to stream to, you don't have to go buy new cameras. You already have a 4K compatible camera. So it's going to save you over time as well, because that 4K camera that you get today will be good for 3, 4, 5 years, potentially even more. And then you are also staying up to date with industry trends, because now you are also contributing to this 4K workflow. And then, like I said already, there are some places that are doing 4K transmissions, like YouTube, like Netflix, and all of your major sporting events out there. And I also wanted to talk about this on the previous slide. You can see here a better representation of the network requirements that you'll want to have in to stream to multiple destinations, and the preferred platform, what they recommend. And as you can see with YouTube at 4K 60p, if you're using H.265, you can get away with a lower upload speed. But if you're using H.264, you really still want to have, again, that 25 to 35 megabits at least for overhead. But the whole point of the show is it time to produce my event in 4K? And quite frankly, my answer is yes. Even if you're not streaming in 4K yet, it is time to produce your event in 4K. Take advantage of all of these NDI features that are expanding, all of these really great features that are included in these 4K cameras, and make your production as good as it possibly can be. And then when 4K does become available on Facebook, you are all ready to do that, and you don't have to scramble to get new cameras or anything. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, please feel free to give us a call at 800-323-2325, and we will be more than happy to answer them. And definitely make sure to stay tuned every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, my name is James, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Videoguys is available Monday through Friday. Give us a call at 1-800-323-2325. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay connected with all of our updates. And you can like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for our live videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.